other kids had cars and they got out of town. They took summer vacations down the shore or in the mountains. We couldn't afford to do any of that. We just stayed in the same old apartment in the summer. And I dreamed of being on other planets and living in other times. I was a lonely kid. I was the kid with his nose in the book. I was the last kid picked for games or things like that. I didn't, sports. I was no good at sports. So I spent a lot of time, sitting, reading a comic book, reading a science fiction book. Most of my initial exposure to many of the great works of English literature was through the Classics Illustrated comic books, whether it was, The Time Machine and War of the Worlds to the best Classics Illustrated, or Shakespeare. They did Shakespeare, Hamlet as a comic book. But then I discovered Superman and Batman, and they were much cooler. So I was reading all the superhero comic books. So I think it was really comic books that made me interested in reading and in stories and in heroes.
As a schoolboy, George Martin was writing superhero and science fiction stories for himself, his friends, and for comic fanzines. He still has some of the figurines which inspired those stories.
These are some